Hello, and welcome to 5 for Friday for this Friday, November 4th, as we approach the end of daylight savings and prepare to fall back an hour on Sunday. Some people think I'm crazy for spending so much time reading the news and putting this newsletter and video together each week, but it's truly a labor of love. It's so fun for me to read all the news stories, or honestly skim a lot of them at first to see if they're giving me any futuristic vibes. In other words, are they indicating a signal of change that small businesses should be aware of enough in advance for the change to be an opportunity and not a threat? That's my goal here. So I hope you find the video news to be helpful and enjoyable, as that also makes it worth my time. All right, now let's get started with this week's 5 for Friday topics. Let's start with topic number 1, the future of work. It sounds super broad, but there were a few stories that I lumped together that signal a shift in what employees are expecting from employers these days. So that includes a continued interest in working remotely, not a surprise, especially among those with dogs at home, also not a surprise, and those secretly juggling multiple jobs, which is a lot harder to do if you don't work remotely. There's also interest in flexibility in when you work. Apparently Chick-fil-A has had a popular option, which is a 3-day work week, 13 to 14 hours a day, but only 3 days a week. Hugely popular. Hopefully your employees won't get caught up in the layoffs that are looming over the big tech world. And so we'll see what that means when we talk about the recession. So see the newsletter for even more topics related to the future of work. Moving on to story number 2, cybersecurity for small businesses. Did you know that you are 3 times more likely to be attacked by cyber criminals than big businesses are? And that over half of small businesses attacked end up shutting down within 6 months due to the expense incurred after the attack? It's time to address this issue while we wait for big tech to figure out how to increase the use of passwordless systems like face scans and fingerprint reading. Speaking of big tech, let's move on to topic number 3, monopolies. There's often a lot of discussion about the need for antitrust regulations to break apart these tech companies. But the first actual criminal monopoly case in decades came this week in the form of highway repair services. 2 companies agreed to only bid in certain states in order to dominate the market for highway crack sealing services. Pointer from me, don't do that. Bad idea. Another monopolistic risk in the news is the purchase of Simon & Schuster by Penguin Random House. Readers and authors are not convinced there is any good to come of this, and right now the purchase is being blocked by a federal judge. That makes Stephen King happy, so I guess that's good news. All right, moving on from monopolies to a country that controls everything, China, in our story number 4. In the news this week, the FCC wants to ban TikTok in the US due to national security concerns. Good luck getting all those Gen Z kids to delete that app. In other China news, a CEO and co-founder of a self-driving truck company in California has been fired after an FBI SEC investigation accused him of sharing confidential information with a Chinese competitor funded by Chinese investors. And COVID is still a risk to your supply chain if you manufacture in China. This week, workers broke out of an iPhone assembly factory and ran home to avoid being locked down at work. The key lesson for small business owners: don't become too dependent on any Chinese businesses. And finally, for story number 5, let's talk more about those crazy Gen Z kids. They range in age from 9 to 25. So the oldest are in the workforce now and may just be experiencing their first round of layoffs. I'm sure we all remember past layoffs from our work life fondly, right? It's all part of growing up. Or is it? It turns out these Gen Zers remember the recession of 2008 when their parents were the ones facing job loss. As a result, they're not nearly as tolerant of bad bosses, unreliable schedules, long hours, or lack of personal time. So they've become union advocates, gathering interest on Gen Z communication channels like TikTok, Discord, and Snapchat, where they know their messages are safe from the prying eyes of Gen X and baby boomer bosses. All right, finally, we're still looking at our weekly recession, yes or no. What does it look like this week? I saw 3 positive-ish stories, 3 negative ones, and 2 neutrals. And one of the neutral stories was basically, at least we're not as bad off as the UK. So there is that. For newsletter subscribers, there are 3 bonus stories, 1 helpful for small business owners, 1 concerning for us all, and 1 that is sad but funny about a scandal in the world of professional cornhole players. What? All right, so check the newsletter for those stories. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening and have a great weekend.